Beginning chapter 3, there's a word there at the beginning of chapter 3 that ties it to what came before. What is that? What?
Likewise.
Likewise. Well, when you read that word likewise,
It's therefore.
when you read that word likewise, what should you immediately think?
Because of what they said before, also here.
It's going to be like what it was.
Right. So it's a continuation of a discussion. It's not beginning a new discussion. It's a continuation of a discussion, right? Because he's saying that, what I'm talking about here is just like what I was talking about just a minute ago, right? So then the question is, what was he talking about just a minute ago? Who is he talking to in verse 18? Servants. And then he gives instructions for servants in that specific role of a servant. He gives instructions for how to model Christ in that role. How to live in a way that you show Christ, living as a servant, right? And he goes through that. We studied through that previously. And so he's continuing that here. He's continuing to point out specific roles and to say, this is how you're supposed to function in this role. So what is the role that he's talking about here?
Well, it says wives.
Wives. Is that a specific role? Yes. Husband, wife, mother, father. So wives likewise. So what does that tell you about? Now here again, he's speaking specifically to wives. And are there places where the role of the husband is being addressed? That specific role of the husband is being addressed to tell husbands this is how you're supposed to function in that role? Yes. Children, does the Bible say how children are supposed to? See, these are specific roles. And the reason I point that out and really emphasize the importance of that is because look what Jude says here when he's talking about these false teachers that were coming up in the church that were causing so many problems. Most people look at these passages where they're talking about the false teachers and the heresies that were developing at that time because the apostles were predicting the apostasy that would come after they were gone. Well, there were already false teachers doing stuff and causing problems while the apostles were still there. So if they were doing that while the apostles were still there, what was going to happen after the apostles were gone? It was going to get really bad. And that's that great apostasy that they predicted. Well, look at what Jude compares that to. Verse 6. And the angels who did not keep their what? Their proper domain. What is that proper domain?
The proper area.
Or role, right? So these angels that Jude is talking about, God gave them a specific role that they were supposed to function within this role. That's what he's talking about, their proper domain, their sphere of operation, what God gave them to do, right? Their proper domain, but left their own abode, right? God gave them a place that they were supposed to keep. He gave them a specific role that they were supposed to play. And they didn't do it. They rebelled against that role that God gave them. They did not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode. So the reason I put that here, because we're talking about these roles and Peter's giving instructions for these specific roles. Well, what is the example for not functioning within the specific role that God has assigned to you? What's the example that is used to show what that is? What is that? When God has said, this is the role that you're supposed to function in, and you say, I'm not going to do that. What is that?
Sin.
That's sin. That's rebellion. That's rebelling against God. Who is the sovereign ruler of everything with authority over everything? The one in the role of authority, in the position of authority, to determine what everybody else's role is supposed to be. Who is that?
God.
That's God. So if we have our specific roles that we're supposed to function in, and we refuse to do that, we reject that, then we're rebelling against God. That's rebellion. And that's what those angels did. They rebelled against God. They followed Satan in his rebellion against God, and that's the devil and his angels that are bound under chains of darkness for the day of judgment, Peter talks about in 2 Peter. So it's important to see where these roles are. Now, do we have crossover or overlapping roles at times? Yeah. I'm a father, I'm a husband. Those are two specific roles. I'm supposed to function in a specific way as a father. I'm supposed to function as a specific way as a husband. I'm a preacher. That's another role, right? I'm supposed to function in a specific way as a preacher, right? And who determines those roles? This is one of the things that has always gotten me. And yeah, I'm talking to the camera now. This is one of the things that's always gotten me when, you go to preach at a congregation or either they're looking at you for their full-time preacher and they slide you this job description. And me being the smart aleck I am, I'm surprised I've ever been able to find a place to preach. Because my response to that is to slide back the New Testament and say, here's my job description, right? Now, the reason I have gone to the congregations I've gone to, with very little exception, is because the way that they presented their understanding of the role of the preacher was what the Bible says for the role of the preacher. And if I'm a preacher, I'm going to function in the role of the preacher the way that the New Testament says. So there's, the role of the elders, the role of deacons, role of preachers, Bible class teachers, members of the congregation. As a member of the congregation, do you have a specific role to play in the work of the church? Yes. Well, what if you're not doing that? What is that called? Rebellion, right? Same thing those angels did. That's rebellion. So Peter is emphasizing through here, talking to servants, okay? Why specifically point out servants? Because that is a role of submission. And isn't that a more difficult role to be in than the role of authority? Isn't it sometimes more difficult to be in the role of submission? to submit to others?
Depends on your attitude.
Well, yeah.
And those that are in control too, they have their burdens of.
That's exactly right. Right,
Is
Paul.
the right thing? Am I following the right path? Am I making sure that I hadn't missed anybody
Right.
or whatever? Yeah.
So Paul talked about the role of the servant, and then right next to that talked about the role of the master. Peter talks about the role of the servant, the role of the wife. See, and what's the very first thing it says about the wife? Same thing it said about servants, right? Be in a role of submission. As a servant, you are in a role of submission. Be in that role of submission, right? You're not in the role to tell your master what to do. You're in the role to do what your master tells you to do, as long as you can do that without violating the law of Christ.
But this one is specifically, though, to your own husband. You don't have to be submissive to anybody else.
That's right.
But you need to be submissive to your own husband,
Right.
not somebody else's husband.
That's right. Which is a consistent statement made about wives. Where Paul talks about wives, he says, your own husband. He says to the husband, your own wife.
Well, and you'd think it would be a non-starter,
Right.
but he had to put it in there.
Right.
Because people are stupid. I'm
Right.
sorry, but a lot of people are stupid.
Right. Well,
It's
you know,
like the denomination not doing what they know the Bible says that they need to do, and they do it under the guise of righteousness.
right. And it's a statistical fact that one of the things that causes problems in marriage is not letting go of the parents, right? Many times it's a problem where the wife is still deferring to her father as her authority, even over her husband. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. She has left her father and has been joined to her husband. He is her authority now, not her father. And so you got, women that constantly running back home to daddy, and girls that are guys that are, well, that's not how my mama did it. That's not how, well, my mama said this. Well, it's, you're not trying to please your mama, you're trying to please your wife, right? And that causes problems. This failure to recognize the appropriate roles, right? Your husband and wife, you're joined together, one flesh. Mom and dad are out of the picture now. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't respect them, honor them as your parents. Of course, you're supposed to do that, care for them. And, we have a responsibility to take care of those who took care of us, right? So it doesn't, do away with any of that. But a wife looks to her husband for her authority. A husband looks to his wife for his affection, right?
And if before you get married, you don't think that's something you can do,
That's right. Don't get
if
married.
that person is not the person you can feel like that can make sure that everything's going like it needs to.
Right. Then don't get married. Yeah, that's right. So he's going on and continuing this discussion of specific roles. He talked about servants, and now he comes to wives, and he says, wives likewise. So just like there's a specific role for servants to play in that role, there's a specific role for wives in that role. So if you're in the role of a wife, this is how you're supposed to be in that role, right? So that's the significance of the word likewise there. Wives likewise be submissive to your own husbands. And again, you look over at Ephesians chapter 5, Paul uses the exact same wording there. Wives submit, Ephesians 5:22, wives submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, right? A wife is not supposed to be in submission to another man, or this tendency of a wife appealing to other men to say, kind of like, well, why aren't you more like this? Or why, so-and-so, this man does it this way. This is the way we ought to. Well, no, you're going to cause problems. That's going to cause problems. You can't do that. Your husband is your authority. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as also Christ is head of the church. And he is the Savior of the body. And then he comes down, verse 25, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her. So it gives specific instructions to wives in that role of the wife, and specific instructions to the husband in the role of the husband. And down here in verse 28, you see that word own, just like with wives. He says, so husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. That's the problem. Men start showing that love that is only for their wife to other women. That's a problem. Can't do that. That's what leads to adultery, right? If you don't express that kind of affection to other women than your wife, then what's the likelihood you're going to fall into a affair? It's not going to happen. A woman giving that reverence to her own husband and only her husband, that's not likely to lead to an affair, right? So he emphasizes your own wives, your own husbands, because you show this kind of reverence or affection for somebody else other than your wife or your husband, you're going down the wrong path. You're going to be in trouble. So wives, likewise, be submissive to your own husbands, that even if some do not obey the word, they, without a word, may be won by the conduct of their wives. So what's the picture here? Is the picture here a woman that is married to a non-believer that is just nagging him constantly? Go to church with me. Have a Bible study with me. On his head constantly. Oh, you need to be baptized. No, that's not the example there. The example there is for her to fill her role as the wife in a godly way that makes him see the value of the Christian life, makes him want to be a Christian from her example. It's not her, badgering him or nagging him or berating him. It's her setting the right example and him, appreciating the kind of woman that his wife is, and her living her role in such a way that he knows she is the kind of wife that she is because she's a Christian, and that makes him desire Christianity because he sees the goodness of it, the benefit of it, and he wants that. So that's what Peter's talking about there when he says that they without a word may be won by the conduct of their wives. Does that mean that it's just the example of their wife that will bring them to salvation and they don't need to hear the gospel? Is that what? Because I've heard people use without a word that way. That, well, Peter said here that people can be saved without a word. So you don't have to hear the gospel. You just have to be the right kind of person. You have to, okay, well, how do you know how to be the right kind of person without hearing the word, right? So people come up with some pretty nonsensical arguments sometimes. And it's obvious that what Peter is talking about here is the wife living her Christian role in such a way that it makes him desire to be a Christian. It cultivates in him a receptive attitude toward the gospel. That's what it's talking about, right? May be won by the conduct of their wives, when they observe your chaste conduct accompanied by fear. Chaste, that means pure, proper, that your conduct is appropriate for your role. Accompanied by fear. That's reverence, respect. Do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on fine apparel. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart, with the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. And I was going to ask, have you ever, but I know that we all have, see a very attractive woman, makeup done good, hair done good, dressed nice, very attractive woman, until she opens her mouth and she's a loud, boisterous, do what?
Even.
Yeah. And does she still look attractive to you after that? No. But then on the other hand, you see somebody that, we might, our first impression might be kind of plain Jane or, however you might think of it, right? But then the more you get to know that person, they become more and more attractive to you because not of their outward appearance, but because of the kind of person they are, right? That's what Peter's talking about here. And isn't that true that a lot of times somebody that you might not have really thought anything about their looks or anything when you first met them, but then over a course of time you've gotten to know them and you just have that perception of them that they're a very attractive person. It's not because of their outward appearance. It's because you're attracted to the kind of person they are, right? And that's what Peter's talking about here, right? If it's just this outward adornment, what we've got a saying when there's a good Great proverb. I'll pull it up here in just a minute. Great proverb saying the same thing. But what do we say sometimes? You know, you put lipstick on a pig, still a pig, right? You can put the makeup on the pig. You can make the pig look cute, you know, whatever. It's still a pig, right? Well, you know, you can dress up a woman, fine apparel, nice makeup, fine jewelry, all this stuff, and she's still a pig, right? She's not attractive. She's repulsive because of it. And it to me, it's even more repulsive if she is an outwardly attractive person, but the kind of but the kind of person she is on the inside makes her just, ugh, you know, just you don't want to be in the same room with her, right?
The life that she presents is a lie.
That's right. That's right.
Years ago, there was an actress, and I'd seen her on TV, and I thought she was very pretty, very elegant, and all of that, until I saw a movie where she played a psycho and tried to kill Clint Eastwood.
Oh, well,
And
now she's out.
It took me years to watch her again after that.
Yeah.
She done been cast out.
Oh, there's some stuff where, you know, me and Mary will be, you know, wanting to find something to watch on TV, and I'll browse through and I'll see a movie there, and it's a good movie, right? Perfectly good movie. And I'll say, well, how about that? Let's watch that. And she'll say, oh no, that's got that guy in it. I can't take him. And it's because of something he's done, not as an actor, but as a person. You know.
Yeah, you try not to find out about their
Right.
because
I mean, it's right. It's like the less you know about the people that you like to watch and entertain you, the less you know about them, the better. Because when you learn more about them, then you can't stand to look at them anymore. You don't want to watch them. Right? So now I got all these good movies that I can't watch because Mary can't stand to look at these people, and understandably so. I'm not real fond of them
Well, I
either.
don't think I was ever as disappointed as I was with Perry Mason.
Perry
I love
Mason.
Perry Mason. I love to watch him. I loved all the shows.
Yeah.
But when I found out that he was just flaming, that, you know, now every time I watch him, he's just flaming.
Who was that?
Raymond Burr.
Raymond Burr.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I wish you hadn't told me that.
Rock Hudson.
Rock Hudson, yeah.
What's it, Charles
That was-
Winchester on MASH?
Oh, I don't
Oh,
know.
really?
Yeah.
My mom was that way with Rock Hudson. After she found out about Rock Hudson, she would not watch a Rock Hudson. She said it's a lie. He's playing a woman's man, you know, a romantic,
That's what
and
actor means.
right. And she says it's just a lie. I can't watch him.
Yeah, it messes up.
I don't watch Tom Cruise movies. I cannot stand him.
Now, I see he's the one I really like.
I can't stand him. I won't watch
But there's some people that I can just overlook whatever badness and just
Right.
not think about it. But it just burns me.
Right. So see, I mean, that's an example of how the inner person overrides the outward appearance. The outward appearance can be great, you know, beautiful, very, very attractive. But then you see what kind of person that is wrapped up in that package, and it's, you know, ugh.
Yeah, you very rarely find people that are really that don't have any gall, that don't have any, you know what I mean. They can be true to themselves on a lot of levels, but sometimes there's just still always that. But I guess that's because you know yourself, and you can hear those things that are being said that other people, you know, in your mind that you're saying that you shouldn't be saying at times.
All right. Do not let your adornment be merely outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on fine apparel. Rather, let it be the hidden person of the heart, with an incorruptible beauty, of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God. Right? God does not care whatsoever what your outward appearance is, as long as you're, you know, maintaining yourself. I mean, I don't think it's pleasing to God to just, you know, be like Pigpen in the Charlie Brown cartoon, but comparing it to this, putting on the fine apparel. I mean, as long as you're loving yourself, right? You're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. If it's pretty clear that you hate yourself, well then, what kind of relationship you're going to have with your neighbors, right? So, of course, you got to take care of yourself, maintain yourself, but not putting the emphasis on your outward appearance, right? Because what's going to happen to that outward appearance? Whatever fine apparel you got on, however you got your face done up, your hair done up, whatever jewelry, what's going to happen to all that stuff?
It's
You're
gonna
gonna
burn.
get old.
It's gonna burn.
It's gonna decay and be gone, right?
And when you're dead, you don't have it anymore.
That's right.
So,
But what about that?
Burn.
What about that gentle and quiet spirit, which is very precious in the sight of God? What's going to happen to that when all this other stuff is gone?
it'll still be there.
It'll still be there. For in this manner, in former times, the holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves. How did they adorn themselves? What was their adornment? What's the adornment that Peter's talking about there? The beautifying, that's what adornment is, right? The beautifying element. What was it that made them beautiful? That adorned them?
That inward submissive spirit that they had.
Read what he says. The holy women who trusted in God also adorned themselves, what?
Being submissive to their own husband.
Being submissive to their own husbands. That's the adornment that makes for a beautiful wife.
Do you think that it's also the adornment is Christ?
Well, I mean,
Put him on.
it's the Christian life.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, that's using Sarah.
Right.
I was thinking of Ruth as being sort of the perfect wife. She was married first.
Oh, a widow?
And she was a widow.
The perfect wife is a widow?
But as a widow, what did she do? She cared for
Her mother-in-law.
the
Yeah, that's right.
husband's mother, and followed the mother all the way back to
Till she
Israel.
remarried.
And then she was able to remarry, and also he was one of the family that would actually help take care of.
Isn't that interesting that even after getting remarried, she marries Boaz, and who was Naomi to Ruth?
The mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law from her deceased husband. And yet, when she comes back to Israel with Naomi, she says, your God will be my God and your people will be my people. So she's essentially proselytized to
The Moabite.
Judaism, right? And so she remarries Boaz. She remarries Boaz. So what happens to Naomi after she marries Boaz?
He takes her own.
He takes care of. So Boaz is taking care of Ruth's mother-in-law from a dead husband. I mean, that's
That's some big shoes to
I'm telling you, that's something.
And he had to go through a lot just to be able to marry
Right.
Ruth. So he saw in Ruth something
That's right.
very, very special. And what did Naomi tell Ruth to do? She went and was very submissive.
Mhm.
She laid at his feet in the threshing floor, and I think he took a look at her to start with when he first saw her, but he was a righteous man that said, I can't do this.
Mhm.
But then they were actually part of the same family, or she wasn't, but Naomi was.
So going on in verse 6, it says, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. What's it say?
It said, be like Abraham.
It says, be like Sarah. As Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are, if, whose daughters you are, if you do good and are not afraid with any terror. So, Peter's using Sarah as an example and how Sarah, now, did Sarah and Abraham ever have any problems?
Oh, yes,
If
they
it's
did.
saying that if you're not Abraham, then there's terror involved.
But I am. All right, so we'll pick up with verse 7, Lord willing. Will I be here next week?
You're here next week.
I'm here, next week, and then I'm gone the week after that. So we'll pick up with verse 7, Lord willing, next week.